Hey there everybody, welcome to the assembly line for the O-Yoroi Kidobutai Mecha Fun. I've been looking forward to this for ages. It's probably one of my favourites. Having said that, all of the mecha are my favourites. Either way, I love these. They're very much based on the work of Masamune Shirow. If you know Appleseed, Ghost in the Shell and the likes, that's kind of where these come from, and Appleseed in particular has sort of, it stole my heart when I was a kid and watching anime for how mecha design should be for personal powered armor based on sort of modern technology as opposed to kind of super fantasy sci-fi technology. And these little dudes in the background here, these are actually robotic landmines who will go and run down your enemy on your behalf and blow themselves up, which is beautiful. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on with assembling this. It is a metal model, and I'm going to show you what cleaning up needs to be done as ever. And you can see the trials and tribulations of me assembling this beautiful mechanical beast. So I'll catch you in a mo once I've got all the pieces out and have gone through them all. First things first then, these are the 3 tokens that come with the O-Yoroi Kidobutai. You've got a couple of wound tokens, one for 3 wounds, one for 2 wounds, and then you have a possession token and an immobilized 2 token. So for when your hackers do take these things, throw all of their hacking might at them and disable them, possess them, cause them to shoot their friends, immobilize them, eject the pilot, do all kinds of heinous things to you. In terms of ejecting the pilot, well, by the way, I do have the pilot for this, and once I've got this assembled and painted, I will move on to that. But I'm going to also, I'm not just going to do a basic paint job, this is going to be a hardcore paint job. So onwards and to the pieces. Here then is the entirety of the O-Yoroi itself, laid out in all of its glorious pieces. There are 16 pieces, it's a complicated model. Also, they're all metal, and this isn't a problem per se, but it does mean that you have weight issues and fragility issues in terms of if you drop it and it's super glued, it's probably going to break. You're just going to have to accept that. So be careful when you're handling them, assembling them, and it is making me think I'm probably going to Dremel and pin. I've also been thinking about using silicone as the glue because that's it's a much, I said silicone, I meant epoxy resin, duh, to glue it, because epoxy is stronger when you get the mix right and the bond is correct. However, it will use up an awful lot. You're probably unsure about some of these pieces. It took me a while to work out, but like these bits here, well, these 2 pieces, these are actually part of the feet. They go into this slot on the bottom of the foot here. If I get that in, yeah, see this slot here, this bit here slots into this bit here. You might be wondering what these little arms are for, but these little arms are sort of the control arms, so the pilot that sits inside the cockpit, which is actually in the chest here, those little arms fix onto the sides into these slots here. You have a shoulder piece and then an arm. The right arm, including the gun in the right arm, is a 1 piece, which is lush because, well, weight bearing qualities come into play. The left arm, however, is a bit more complicated. You have the hands separated from the arm, and the sword is designed to be mounted on the underside of the arm here. And this shield, although it's kind of difficult to see from the pictures, actually slots on top of the left arm, so anybody that's wondering where that goes. And then up here you can't really see it properly because it's completely out of focus, but I'll just bring it down here so it's in focus. Get out of the way. This is the head unit. Give it a quick, make it face you, block all the lights so you can't see it properly anyway. But that's the head unit, which fits on up here somewhere. You might even have that. No, it does. It fits on. It fits on to this slot here. So yeah, there's quite a lot of flash that needs removing. It's mostly heavy duty flash. It's a fairly significant model, so it's big bits of flash. So I'll just go over each piece individually and show you what flash needs to be removed where, and that way you can know how awkward these models are to sort out for yourself and decide how much you really love them and how much time and effort you're really willing to put into them. So first up then, this is the right leg. It's a bit of flash just coming in here. Bit of flash on the bottom of the foot where it's meant to go into the base. There's a bit of flash on the toe here, a bit of flash on the front edge of the knee, and a bit of flash at the back end of the thigh hip here. Now, I don't think this is much of a problem because I think this is really indicative of incredibly good casting skills. As ever, there are no I'm calling this flash. This isn't really flash. Flash lines are normally where there's the mould is not completely secure, and so some of the material escapes around the edges, and you end up with sort of a line, sort of a frilly line around an edge like here. This is the bits where they've got channels running into the mould in order to cast it properly and let the air get out and the metal get in. Okay, so left leg, there's just this sort of big chunk of flash down here, another little bit just next to it, and a little bit just on the top edge here. That's all I've been able to find so far. A little bit on the tip of the knee again, but that's to be expected, I think. So then the back of the feet. Okay, so these slot in to the back of the foot, so this is sort of the prop up tripod effect that you see in the cover image. They come on a metal sprue effectively, so they're going to need removing from that. Also, they've got a couple of bits of flash just sticking off the tips of the toes and off of the corners. But other than that, once again, very clean. They do have some mould lines which need to be dealt with, but that's just a quick run a scalpel blade over it and scrape it away, it'll be fine. So then moving on to the body. This one's pretty hard to see, hence it's propped against this rubber. So this is a gigantic piece of flash, but this is actually the key injection mould, but it's the only bit that I think it's a bit funny about how they've cast it. I don't know why they've run it into sort of the chest piece just below the face of the mech, because that means you've got a sort of a fairly awkward clean-up job rather than it being concealed somewhere. It's not a problem though. Once it's been cut off and cut back, it will come out fine. It's just if it was in a sort of more concealed place, sort of somewhere underneath something else or something, it would be that much easier to, or just at the back. It's just that it's so prominent just underneath the head. It's the only concern there. There's a couple of other little bits of flash there, and on the bottom of this here, and then there's sort of a rough patch just in here. It's a fairly large piece. It's an awkward shape. I can't imagine it's easy to cast and mould. You can't really complain because all of the rest of Corvus Belli's stuff is so well cast, and there's so much preparation removed from you having to do anything about it, so I'm not that fussed about that, but it's going to be a lot harder to clean up because of it. The other thing are the two arms. These come on a metal sprue much like the feet. There's a couple of bits of flash on them, but mostly it's just removing them, just on the tip of the elbows there. The tips of the fingers will need a little bit of a clean up and look at, like this bit of flash sticking here that makes it look like the finger's pointing. Sorry, trying to keep it in focus. I'll just move this out of the way a bit. I'm just leaving this one in shot at the moment because you can see this little bit of flash here that makes it the finger point, but actually the finger bends. So there's just a couple little bits of flash on there, and you see the square slot here. This is actually the slot that goes in here. They seem to use square slots a lot, which is kind of cool in the sense that it gives you a stronger fixed position for if you are not going to drill and pin, because the square blocks will give you a secure and a large surface area, a large secure surface area, which bolts together nicely and easily, so that your miniature should be structurally very strong without having to drill and pin it. I still think I'm going to end up drilling and pinning, just because my experience of large metal miniatures like this is they are heavy enough that they just become super fragile, it's not worth the risk. I mean, certainly small components like these arms, but not components like this. So I suspect, if nothing else, the shoulders, the big arms, the legs, and the bit that goes on its back, which we'll show you next, will all get drilled and pinned. Once again, this is the unit that fixes to the back. If the head goes at the top here, then this attaches on the back this way around. But as you can see here, there is a significant piece of flash, but that's it. Other than that, there's like a tiny little bit down here, and I haven't been able to find any else. It's still maybe worth running a knife just over edges, just to clean them up and make sure, because on these miniatures they're so fine detailed, any flash that you leave behind, it really does mess them up. So then we're getting on to the arms and shoulders. Okay, so this is the right arm and right shoulder. On the right shoulder here, there's this big lump of flash, which is messing with me. You can see it better there. And there's another smaller piece of flash just down here. But other than that, it's very, very clean, as I'm coming to expect from these guys. I'm historically, I don't know, I've been playing since like the mid 80s, and if you got miniatures back then, you used to have tons of cleanup work to do. So this is, I don't know, this is a significant part of preparing miniatures for painting for me, and sort of modelling conversions. This is where you think about doing conversions and stuff as well, whilst you're actually cleaning the miniature up. This right arm is probably one of the messiest pieces of casting I've seen done by Koalas belly. It's got flash here, it's got a little bit of flash here, it's got a little bit of flash on the bottom of the magazine, bottom of the handle here. It's got a large piece of flash here, but this looks like an injection point. The other thing is, on this one, this is one of the few pieces I've seen where there's a line from ever so, less than 1/4 millimeter alignment shift in the mould. So there's a distinct line running around the top edge of the gun, the bottom edge of the gun. It's kind of concealed in this gap here in this arm, but it runs along the bottom edge of the arm and around the elbow as well. So this is going to need a scalpel being taken around the edges of it, and the whole thing needs cleaning up. That'll take a bit of time to do, but still, it's relatively little. It's not like it's multiple components and you're having to faff on with. The worst possible scenario in the case of a metal miniature is that this gun would be on, even if it was attached to a hand, but it would be separate from the arm, because the weight of the gun means that you have to drill and pin, or else it will just keep falling off over and over again every time the miniature gets knocked, and it will get knocked, let's face it. It's going to be coming off, so I'm really glad that that's a one-piece, and I think there's ways of bypassing any structural problems in order to make the miniature sound enough so that you don't have to worry about it just smashing to pieces every time it takes a knock. So here's the left arm. Yeah, it's a lot of components, and it fulfills the very problem I described a minute ago, where you end up with a whole load of pieces which are heavy enough to be a problem and delicate enough to be a problem. Again, the left shoulder, it's got a couple of bits of flash here. Anything else? There is a mould line on this one, which we'll need dealing with. The left hand, again, it's got flash around the base, so that's going to need to be carefully cut. I think that's also an injection point there, so that it should be a square slot, which would match with this arm. Fingers will need a bit of cleaning up as well, but other than that, that's pretty good. Again, a large injection point at the top edge of the arm here. A couple of bits of flash. I'm not actually sure Yeah, and this is a big chunk of flash here, again, but it might be an ejection point. Couple of little bits of flash around the edges here and here. Very clean once again. This is the arm shield. It attaches onto the arm here. I'll show you each piece as I assemble it and how I'm assembling it as well, just so you can get an idea of how much stress and hassle I've been through, and you can judge for yourself whether it's worth it. I think it will be. There's a bit of flash, a bit of flash on the leading edge there, coming off of each of the back corners. This is going to be necessary though, because it's a very, sorry, let me just flip it over, very pointy bit. Okay, this is actually the piece where they injected on this side, but you can just see there's this bit here running along the edge. On the sword here, you've got flash on sort of the hilt, the tip, a little bit on the corner here. And this sword's actually designed to be mounted under the arm as if it's going to be drawn by the right hand. I'm tempted to try and make it fit into the left hand as if it's being held in the left hand. Although I might save that and do this one as meant to be as such, and as when and if I get another one. Because it's difficult to field more than one of these in an army, even a 400-point army, which is sort of the large end of the tournament scale army size. But I really want to field more than one of them because I just like mechs. So yeah, that is the left arm. So then just briefly have a look at the head, and then I'll crack on with cleaning it all up and assembling. Okay, so here's the head. This is the tip of my little finger, so it's deceptively small. I'm just trying to give you as close up a look as you can. Also, I mean, the phenomenal amount of detail they squeeze into these models is amazing. So you've got just flash here, flash on the tip of his beard. You also have flash on the mounting point, and there's a tiny bit of flash that you can't see, which is just on the back here. Also, again, there just needs to be a scalpel taken to the top of the head to deal with ridge lines there, where the moulding's slightly separated. So I'm going to crack on, clean this up, and I shall start assembling it before you next see it probably. So I shall catch you in a mo. And I'll show you like what I've done, and you will be able to see the process I'm using to assemble this. So see you momentarily.
Okay, so here is the drilled body. I've just run a bit of soldering iron, which is what I'm actually soldering iron? Just a bit of solder, heavy thick solder, because that's what I'm going to use to pin it, partly for the flex. And partly because just for structure, so you don't really actually use like a solid hard as nails pin, and I find that heavy solder with its flex actually works in a more convenient way. Because it has flex, you can force it through spaces you might not be able to fit something like, say, copper wire, which even if it's like half a mil thick becomes very rigid, very difficult to use. And as you can see here, there's a solder coming out the side. This actually runs all the way through the shoulder piece, through the torso, through the other shoulder piece, into the tip of the other arm. Now, this wasn't done on purpose. I accidentally drilled all the way through this arm, but it came out underneath the shoulder pad, which means that I can feed it in through this side, so I can glue this arm on, push this bit up, glue that into place, push the torso up, glue it into place, push the next shoulder up, forming a sandwich, eventually ending with a bit on the end here, the right arm, and then I could just trim the solder off neatly underneath the shoulder pad and reblend it with a bit of sculpting putty if necessary. The legs on your hand I have not drilled all the way through, partly because the angle of the joint here means that you're kind of going in that angle and this angle, so you can't get a straight through hole. You could get a straight through hole, but it would be very difficult to judge whether they're going to line up on the other side. Tried to line these up, so I've drilled a hole, worked out where I've made an error, and I've compensated for that on the other piece, so it should all fit together very neatly.
Quickly though, I'm just going to show you what I mean about sandwiching all this together. Because this runs all the way through and there's not a hole in this piece, I'll glue this piece on, and then I'll slide this next piece along and glue it in, and then the next piece along and glue it in, the next piece, and so on until you end up with the torso fully joined up together. And this will just keep everything, it's not rigid but structurally sound, just really trying to give it that extra bit of durability, so it's not just breaking every time it gets knocked, because unfortunately sooner or later miniatures always get knocked, and metal ones in particular, you tend to find one arm goes one way, another arm goes another way, and then you're scraping around on the floor looking for all of your beautifully painted components and going, damn it, I wish that hadn't happened. So I'm just trying to minimise that, and if nothing else, when it does break, hopefully the pieces won't go flying and it'll be relatively easy to repair. So yes, onwards and sticky woods. So here we have the assembled O-Yoroi. It's almost ready for undercoating. You might notice that I've stuck the two little arms which are for mounting onto the body here separately. I don't normally do this. I prefer sticking miniatures together entirely before painting them, because when you undercoat with black it provides shading, and essentially I'm a lazy painter. It's a bit different when you're playing Infinity because your forces are so small, and when you're building up, you're looking at about 6 to 12 miniatures for a single army. So don't get me wrong, you can spend infinite quantities of time as I am doing, or you can bosh paint them. I mean, I still see a lot of metal miniatures out there when people are playing, which kind of is a bit unfortunate to me, considering that you could even just paint them grey, give them a black ink wash. Give them a grey, dry brush with the same grey used, and that'll give enough of a finish to at least make them look like something, and then you could paint them later as they earn battle rewards. You notice I've got the arms here and I've got the head here, and I've just stuck them onto a base so that they are easy to pick up and paint. The only other thing I just want to show you quickly is the tail end of the bit of solder that I used to run through everything. I just need to clip this off, and then that will be the last of this. But as you can see, it's come through in a very concealed place, which is somewhat convenient, and I didn't do it on purpose. I wish I had. Not good enough for this kind of malarkey. But I'm going to make a point: when you're drilling, please, please, please use a clamp or a pair of pliers. If you are going to use a clamp or pair of pliers, see if you can get your hands on a piece of leather or something soft so that you can protect the metal from getting sort of clamp print. So I'm just going to clip this off, and then I will undercoat. And because I am doing this piecemeal and I have separate pieces, I'm going to not undercoat this bit here, because this is going to be the contact point for the head. Same for the contact points for the arms, which are in underneath here. I am going to not undercoat them. The reason for this is that even if it is something like enamel paint, which I will be using, is my go-to undercoat really, which is much stronger than normal paint, it's still paint, and so it will shear off quite easily, and I don't want this to be coming to pieces. The other thing, I have tested this. I don't like to do it, but look, I can knock it over. It doesn't fall to pieces. Woohoo! So I'll get this undercoated and I'll show you the end product in a moment, or the pre-painted product in a moment. Just before going any further, I'm going to cover the crazy koalas before I undercoat or anything. Because I kind of consider this to be one miniature, even though the crazy koalas are separate. I mean, really, as far as I'm concerned, it would even be better if the pilot came with the O-Yoroi model. I think that would be better. It would make more sense to me, just because all piloted mechs can have their pilots ejected, so it would just make sense that all piloted mechs came with their pilot. But I also understand that from a pricing point of view, and them kind of being non-essential, or you can proxy them with other minis, because you're always going to have spares, even in Infinity, where you have tiny little forces. It's sort of, you'll probably end up with at least one spare mini which you can use as proxy, but I prefer to not proxy if I can possibly avoid it. So as you can see, these guys are incredibly difficult to get in focus. This is very zoomed in, it's very yeah, that's as focused as I can get it. In fact, I'm going to just, there you go. As you can see, there's just sort of a few bits of flash all around the corners. These bits here are actually meant for slaughter bases. I'm going to be removing these. This particular crazy koala, it has sort of like smoke coming off its feet as if it's running very quickly. I'm very tempted to cut all of this off and have it that way. The heads for the crazy koalas are actually attached, so it's each of these is in one model. I'm glad that there's two different models as well. That's a really lovely touch from Corvus Belli. And again, we've got the basing, which is used also the injection points, so you're getting no significant lumps, just a bit of flash. And only as where there's channels cut for air to come out. The alignment on the moulding seems to be pretty much perfect. So I'm going to trim these back and prep them for undercoating, and I will get back to you momentarily once I've trimmed them back and stuck the heads on. Catch you in a moo. Fast Pandas are below. Crazy Koalas assembled. Everything's pretty easy, but if you have a look at the back of their heads here, this hasn't been megatastically easy. These bits in here, this is where the injection part of the mould attached, and these very small components, and this had to be like carved into shape. I mean, you can see I've kind of made a bit of a mash of it. I've tried to just etch in a bit onto this one to give it a bit of form and structure, to make it just look kind of right. I have removed them from their feet because these will be going onto my bases, and I have left the smoke on his feet, so I'll paint that like, well, dust probably rather than smoke. Assembled. So I'm just going to undercoat everything, and I'll just show you what I've done with the undercoat so you can see where I've left sort of gaps for things to attach to. I think this is quite important because you always want metal to metal contact, or plastic to plastic contact, or metal to plastic contact, or whatever it is you're using. You want clean surface to clean surface contact when gluing, even when you are painting. And like I said, I don't normally do it this way, not my preferred way of doing it. Also bear in mind, if you use too much super glue when gluing, you can get like the weird white foggy thing, but that's excessive glue combined with grease on the miniature. The white fogging is actually sticking to grease, and finger grease, just your daily hand sweat type grease, that is enough to stick. So I shall see you with some undercoated things momentarily. Here you go, everything's all undercoated, ready to paint, and I haven't yet butchered the bits on the bottom of the feet of the O-Yoroi, which stick into the base. I'm probably going to end up actually drilling the base, which I'm a little bit scared of because I've been told by the guy that made them for them that acrylic has a tendency to split, so that'll be a careful job for me to probably mess up a couple of times at least. I have 5 bases of this size, so hopefully I won't mess it up 5 times, but we shall see. As you can see, this little bit, which is where the head will get stuck in, not painted. You might notice that the head is actually stuck on to the base, and so are the arms, by the bits which will get stuck to that, hence keeping them clean. And you can't really see it, but I've left just in here, there's the bits where the arms attach on, I've left the metal that sits behind that clean of paint, because that'll be my gluing point. So I hope it's been some use to you. Enjoy your modelling, painting, infinity shenanigans. Have a good one and take care. Cheers everybody. Bye bye.